What's going on, Serpa Squad? Tanner here. This week's project is going to be an interesting one. It's one that I've had planned for quite a while now, just haven't got around to doing it until now. I was working on a different project for the whole week, up until yesterday actually, and I had some technical difficulties with it. Had less than 24 hours to come up with something, and I figured that'd be a great time to do this one. So let's take a look. As with any project of this nature, it all starts with a nice vessel. For this one I'll be using a little glass dish. It may look familiar to veterans of the channel as it was originally used to showcase the resurrection plant. We use it in this one to create a design I've had in mind for months. While brainstorming ideas for the design, I decided I would experiment a little. I was thinking of ways to make a landmass that could retain water. I figured a chunk of ocean sponge would be perfect for the job. In theory, this will absorb and retain water for the plants. I also have a tube of Cyanoacrylate Superglue. I started by breaking the sponge up into smaller pieces. As I alluded to earlier, these will be used to make land formations. I arranged pieces in the dish to get a general idea of how I could scape the layout. With an idea in mind, I applied a few dabs of superglue to the bottom of the dish. The sponge was pressed into them until secure. I used this larger sponge as a key element and worked in another one. I also decided that the larger piece could have more definition and height. I added 2 more pieces of sponge to help with this. After all of that, I ended up with the skeleton or foundation of the design. Obviously, a sponge on its own isn't very appealing. No worries, we'll cover the outside in various materials including small pieces of sandstone, cocoa fiber, fine gravel, and sand. Using the superglue from earlier, I attached a few stones to the front of the sponge. I'm not going overboard with these. I mainly want them for pops of texture. After the stones were in place, I put down more glue and covered it with cocoa fiber. I turned the structure upside down to remove any excess. Then I repeated the process, only this time I used a combination of cocoa fiber, fine gravel, and sand to create a more diverse and interesting look. This is the end result of layering various materials. As you can see, there's still a lot of areas with sponge intentionally exposed. This is where we'll plant all of the moss. For this one I'm using various types of moss, the most prevalent being thread moss. Keeping it simple, all I did was wedge tufts of moss between the spaces of the sponge. Over time they should attach themselves to the surface. Now it's time for some detail work. To keep with the scale of everything, I'm using small pieces of spiderwood. They are wedged in between formations to give the impression of branches that washed up on shore or the roots of a tree. Afterward, I gave everything a good spray down and filled the basin with water so the sponges would absorb the moisture. Then I continued to add more detail work. I filled the basin with sand, working around the scape with my fan brush. I also sprinkled in bits of fine gravel to create additional texture. To finish everything off, I filled the basin with water once more. I also took a few spoonfuls of duckweed from the pond-themed riparium and scattered them on the water's surface. And that's going to do it for this one, Serpa Squad. I really hope you all enjoyed the little project I came up with this week. It's something simple, but it's very effective. As far as upkeep goes with this sort of thing, it's just going to be a matter of making sure the water stays in check. So we're going to ensure that the basin is full with water at all times, as well as occasionally spray down the moss to make sure that it stays hydrated. Now if that sponge isn't doing what I intend for it to do, and that is retain all of the moisture, I may have to seal this up with a jar, so just turn a jar upside down and put it right over the top. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Until next time, Serpa Squad, take care and peace.